Have you ever noticed that the more you love your own life, the less power people have over your emotions? The less you desperately need attention, validation, constant messages, or someone to stay just to feel happy. Most people spend their entire lives emotionally depending on others without even realizing it. They believe happiness comes from relationships, approval, or being constantly needed by someone. But Buddhism teaches a dangerous truth most people never understand. When your happiness depends entirely on other people, your peace becomes fragile. One rejection can destroy you. One person leaving can make your whole world feel empty. And this is why so many people secretly suffer from loneliness, anxiety, emotional attachment, and fear of abandonment. But what if true freedom begins the moment you start building a life that feels beautiful on its own? A life so peaceful, meaningful, and fulfilling that you stop begging the world to complete you. In this video, you will discover how to stop emotionally depending on others for happiness, protect your inner peace, and finally feel fulfilled even when you stand alone. 1. Your happiness cannot depend on other people. One of the biggest reasons people suffer emotionally is because they build their happiness around other people instead of building it within themselves. They believe someone else must stay in their life for them to feel complete. They believe love, attention, approval, and companionship are the only sources of happiness. But Buddhism teaches that anything outside yourself is temporary. People change. Relationships change, feelings change, and when your happiness depends entirely on something temporary, suffering becomes unavoidable. This does not mean you should stop loving people. Buddhism never teaches emotional coldness, it teaches emotional freedom. There is a difference between loving someone and emotionally depending on them to feel alive. The more dependent you become on others for emotional stability, the more fear controls your life. Fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, fear of being alone, fear of losing people. But when you start building happiness from within, everything changes. You stop seeing loneliness as punishment. You begin enjoying your own company. You learn how to create peace without constantly needing someone beside you. And ironically, this makes your relationships healthier, because you stop clinging to people out of emotional desperation. A peaceful life begins when your happiness belongs to you. 2. Build a life that feels meaningful without validation. Most people spend their lives trying to impress others instead of creating a life that truly makes them happy. They choose careers just to gain approval. They change their personality to fit in with certain people. They stay quiet about their real thoughts because they are afraid of being judged or rejected. Slowly, they stop living for themselves and begin performing for the world. Their happiness becomes dependent on compliments, attention, and acceptance from others. Buddhism teaches that suffering begins when you abandon your authentic self to gain validation. The more your life depends on other people's opinions, the more emotionally exhausted you become. Because validation never lasts for long. No matter how much approval you receive, your mind will always want more. And when people stop giving you attention or praise, you suddenly feel empty again. But true peace begins when you stop asking, "Will people approve of my life?" and start asking, "Does this life feel peaceful and meaningful to me?" That question changes everything, because a meaningful life is not built through comparison or popularity. It is built through alignment. Alignment between your actions, your values, your energy, and your inner peace. When your daily life reflects what genuinely matters to your soul, people slowly become less emotionally necessary. You stop needing everyone to understand you. You stop chasing constant approval. And the more meaningful your own life becomes, the less desperate you become for outside validation. 3. Learn to enjoy solitude without feeling empty. Many people are afraid of being alone because they believe happiness only exists around other people. The moment they sit in silence, they start feeling anxious, restless, or emotionally empty. So they constantly search for distractions, endless conversations, social media, relationships, or attention, just to avoid facing themselves. But Buddhism teaches that solitude is not a punishment. Solitude is a space where you reconnect with your own mind and soul. When you never learn how to enjoy your own company, you become emotionally dependent on others to feel okay. Their attention controls your mood. Their absence creates loneliness. Their rejection destroys your peace. But when you learn how to sit alone peacefully, something powerful happens inside you. You begin understanding yourself more deeply. Your mind becomes calmer. Your emotions become more stable. And you stop feeling desperate for constant connection. Solitude gives you time to reflect, heal, grow, and build a stronger relationship with yourself. It allows you to focus on your goals, your peace, your habits, and the life you truly want to create. Slowly, being alone stops feeling painful because your life itself starts becoming fulfilling. The more you enjoy your own presence, the less emotionally dependent you become on the presence of others. 4. Stop chasing people who add no peace to your life. One of the biggest reasons people suffer emotionally is because they keep chasing relationships that constantly destroy their peace. They hold on to people who ignore them, disrespect them, manipulate them, or make them feel emotionally exhausted. Even when the relationship brings more stress than happiness, they still refuse to let go. Why? Because deep down they are more afraid of being alone than they are of suffering. Buddhism teaches that attachment becomes dangerous when you continue holding on to what constantly disturbs your inner peace. Many people believe love means tolerating emotional pain forever. They believe staying loyal means accepting disrespect, confusion, neglect, and emotional inconsistency. But real peace cannot grow in relationships filled with constant emotional chaos. The painful truth is that some people only enter your life to drain your energy. Some people only appear when they need attention, validation, or emotional support from you, but disappear when you need peace or understanding in return. And when your happiness depends entirely on those people, your emotional state becomes unstable. One text changes your mood. One cold response ruins your day. One moment of distance makes you anxious. Slowly, your peace becomes controlled by people who are not even protecting it. But everything changes when you begin building a life you genuinely love. The more fulfilled your life becomes internally, the less desperate you become for unhealthy connections externally. You stop begging people to stay. You stop chasing those who clearly do not value your presence. You stop forcing relationships that only bring confusion into your life. Buddhism teaches that peace is more valuable than attachment. Sometimes letting go is not losing someone. Sometimes letting go is finally saving yourself emotionally. Because holding on to people who constantly hurt your mind only creates deeper suffering over time. When you truly start enjoying your own life, your standards naturally rise. You no longer tolerate relationships that steal your peace. You no longer chase people who only appreciate you when it benefits them. You become more protective of your energy, your time, your emotions, and your mental health. This does not mean you stop caring about people. It means you stop abandoning yourself just to keep certain people in your life. You stop sacrificing your inner peace for temporary attention or emotional comfort. You realize that loneliness is far less painful than constantly feeling emotionally drained by the wrong people. And the more peace you build within yourself, the easier it becomes to walk away from relationships that no longer align with your soul. Because once your life itself becomes meaningful and fulfilling, you stop seeing people as emotional necessities. They become a choice, not a survival need. That is when real emotional freedom begins. 5. Create daily habits that make your life feel beautiful. A life you truly love is not created overnight. It is built slowly through the small habits, choices, and routines you repeat every single day. Many people think happiness will finally arrive when they find the perfect relationship, make more money, become successful, or gain recognition from others. They spend years waiting for one big moment to finally feel fulfilled. But Buddhism teaches that peace is not something waiting for you in the future. Peace is something you create daily through the way you live your life right now. Most people underestimate how much their daily habits shape their emotional world. The way you wake up in the morning affects your mind. The thoughts you repeat every day affect your emotions. The content you consume affects your energy. The people you spend time with affect your peace. Slowly, your daily lifestyle becomes the environment your mind lives inside of. If your days are filled with stress, negativity, unhealthy habits, endless distractions, emotional chaos, and constant comparison, your mind naturally becomes heavy. You start feeling empty even when nothing is technically wrong in your life. This is why many people feel emotionally exhausted even after spending time with others. Their outer life may look normal, but their inner world has no peace. Buddhism teaches that happiness grows when you become intentional about how you live. Instead of constantly chasing temporary pleasure or external validation, you begin building small daily habits that nourish your mind and soul. You protect your peace more carefully. You become more conscious about what enters your life emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. For example, waking up early and sitting quietly for even a few minutes can calm the mind more than endless distractions ever will. Spending time in nature can reconnect you with a sense of peace that social media can never give you. Reading meaningful wisdom instead of constantly feeding your mind negativity slowly changes the way you think. Exercising your body improves not only your health, but also your emotional stability. Creating goals that genuinely matter to you gives your life direction and purpose. These small habits may seem simple, but over time they completely transform your relationship with yourself. You stop feeling emotionally empty because your life itself begins creating fulfillment from within. Your daily routine becomes a source of peace instead of stress. Many people depend too heavily on relationships because they secretly have nothing meaningful outside of them. They have no connection with themselves, no purpose, no inner peace, no healthy routines, and no emotional balance. So they expect other people to fill that emptiness for them. But no person can permanently fix a life that you refuse to build for yourself. This is why creating a life you enjoy is so important. When your days begin feeling meaningful, calm, productive, and emotionally healthy, loneliness loses much of its power over you. You no longer feel desperate for constant attention because your life itself already feels fulfilling. You begin enjoying your own routines, your own growth, your own peace, and your own progress. Buddhism teaches that happiness is not found through attachment to people or possessions. It is found through inner balance. And inner balance is created through daily discipline and mindful living. The small things you do every day eventually shape your entire emotional life. The more beautiful your inner life becomes, the less emotionally dependent you become on external people to constantly entertain, validate, or complete you. You stop chasing distractions because your own life finally feels worth living. And this is one of the most powerful forms of freedom a person can experience, building a life so peaceful and meaningful that your happiness no longer disappears whenever someone leaves. 6. Detach from the fear of losing people. One of the deepest emotional fears people carry is the fear of losing someone they love. Many people spend their lives emotionally attached to others in an unhealthy way because they believe their happiness, identity, or peace depends entirely on certain people staying in their life forever. This fear quietly controls their thoughts, emotions, and behavior every single day. They overthink small changes in someone's behavior. They panic when messages become shorter. They feel anxious when someone becomes distant. They constantly worry about abandonment, rejection, or being replaced. Buddhism teaches that attachment becomes suffering when your inner stability depends completely on external people and circumstances. The problem is not loving people. The problem is becoming emotionally dependent on their presence for your sense of worth and peace. Because the truth is that life constantly changes. People change. Relationships change. Feelings change. And no matter how much you try to control life, you cannot force everything to stay the same forever. Many people destroy their own peace because they live in constant fear of losing what they are attached to. Instead of enjoying relationships peacefully, they become emotionally consumed by anxiety. They become possessive, insecure, jealous, emotionally reactive, or deeply dependent because they are terrified of being left behind. Their mind becomes trapped in fear instead of peace. But Buddhism teaches a powerful truth. Everything in life is temporary. Every person you meet, every experience, every relationship, and every season of life eventually changes. Suffering grows when you emotionally fight this reality instead of accepting it with wisdom. Acceptance does not mean becoming cold or emotionless. It means understanding that your peace cannot collapse every time life changes. You can deeply love people while also understanding that your happiness must not completely depend on them remaining in your life forever. This is why building your own inner life is so important. When you genuinely love your own life, losing people no longer destroys your entire identity. Yes, it may still hurt. You may still feel sadness, grief, or disappointment. Buddhism never teaches humans to become emotionless robots. But emotional pain becomes much easier to survive when your entire life is not built around one person. Many people suffer intensely after losing relationships because they abandoned themselves while trying to hold on to someone else. They stopped focusing on their own growth, purpose, peace, friendships, goals, and inner happiness. Their entire emotional world became centered around another human being. So when that person leaves, they feel like they lost themselves completely. But when you continue building your own life, protecting your peace, growing emotionally, and developing inner strength, something changes. You stop seeing people as the only source of happiness in your life. Relationships become meaningful additions to your journey instead of emotional survival needs. Buddhism teaches that true peace comes from non-attachment. Non-attachment does not mean you stop loving people. It means you stop clinging to them with fear. You stop trying to control every outcome. You stop mentally destroying yourself over the possibility of loss. You learn how to appreciate people while also accepting that life itself is always changing. The fear of losing people often comes from the fear of being alone with yourself. This is why people remain trapped in unhealthy relationships, tolerate disrespect, or beg for love from those who clearly do not value them. Deep down, they believe emptiness will consume them if someone leaves. But when you create a life that genuinely fulfills you, this fear slowly loses its power. You begin trusting yourself more. You realize that even if life changes, you will still survive, You will still rebuild. You will still grow. You will still have your own mind, your own path, your own purpose, and your own peace. This inner confidence changes the way you experience relationships. You stop acting from desperation. You stop clinging too tightly. You stop begging people to stay. Instead, you learn how to love peacefully without losing yourself emotionally. And ironically, this creates healthier relationships. Because people can feel the difference between genuine love and emotional dependence. One comes from peace, the other comes from fear. The stronger your inner life becomes, the less terrified you become of change, loss, or abandonment. Because you finally understand that your happiness cannot be built entirely on things outside your control. And that realization is one of the greatest forms of emotional freedom. 7. Become the source of the love you keep seeking. One of the biggest reasons people feel emotionally empty is because they spend their entire lives searching for outside love while completely neglecting the relationship they have with themselves. They want someone to finally make them feel worthy, valued, peaceful, understood, and complete. They hope another person will heal their loneliness, remove their insecurities, and give them the happiness they cannot create within themselves. But Buddhism teaches a powerful truth that most people never fully understand. The peace, love, and fulfillment you keep searching for externally must first be built internally. Because no relationship can permanently save a person who constantly abandons themselves emotionally. Many people secretly believe they are incomplete alone. This belief creates emotional dependence. They constantly need reassurance, attention, validation, affection, and approval from others just to feel okay. And because of this, they become deeply attached to anyone who temporarily fills that emotional emptiness. Even unhealthy relationships become difficult to leave because they fear returning to the emptiness within themselves. But the painful truth is that no person can permanently fill a void created by self-neglect. If you constantly criticize yourself, ignore your emotional needs, abandon your peace, and build a life you secretly dislike, even love from others will never fully satisfy you for long. The emptiness always returns because the real problem was never outside of you. It was the relationship you had with yourself. Buddhism teaches that true happiness begins when you stop waiting for someone else to finally give you the love and peace you refuse to give yourself. This means learning how to care for your own mind, protecting your own peace, speaking to yourself with more kindness instead of constant self-hatred, building routines that improve your emotional health, creating goals that give your life purpose, learning how to enjoy your own company instead of fearing it. When you begin doing this, something powerful changes inside you. You stop seeing yourself as emotionally incomplete. You stop desperately chasing people to rescue you from loneliness. You stop begging for love from people who barely respect your existence. Because now your emotional foundation is no longer built entirely on external attention. This does not mean you stop wanting love or relationships. Buddhism does not teach isolation. Human connection is still beautiful and meaningful, but relationships become healthier when they come from inner fullness instead of emotional desperation. You begin loving people without losing yourself inside them. You stop making another person responsible for your entire happiness. Many people enter relationships hoping the other person will heal all their emotional pain, but eventually this creates pressure, disappointment, and suffering, because no human being can carry the responsibility of becoming your entire emotional world. That burden eventually breaks relationships apart. But when you become the source of your own peace first, relationships become lighter, calmer, and healthier. You no longer expect another person to constantly save you emotionally. You already have your own inner stability, your own purpose, your own peace, your own identity, your own life. This changes the way you move through the world. You stop tolerating disrespect just because you fear losing someone. You stop accepting emotional crumbs because you finally understand your own worth. You stop staying attached to people who constantly drain your energy. Because when you truly value yourself, protecting your peace becomes more important than forcing unhealthy connections to survive. Buddhism teaches that attachment often comes from inner emptiness. The more disconnected you are from yourself, the more desperately you cling to others for emotional comfort. But the more connected you become to your own life, your own growth, and your own inner peace, the less emotionally dependent you become. This is why building a life you genuinely love is so important. When your days feel meaningful, your mind feels calmer, your habits become healthier, and your relationship with yourself improves, people slowly stop becoming emotional necessities. You still appreciate love, you still enjoy connection, but your happiness no longer collapses every time someone disappoints you or walks away. Because now you understand something most people never learn: the deepest form of love is not constantly searching for someone to complete you. It is finally learning how to stop abandoning yourself. And the moment you become the source of the love, peace, and fulfillment you once desperately searched for in others, you become emotionally free. 8. Stop abandoning your own life while chasing people. One of the saddest things many people do is slowly abandon their own life while chasing emotional connection from others. They stop focusing on themselves. They stop caring about their goals, their peace, their dreams, their health, and their inner happiness. Their entire emotional world becomes centered around certain people. They wake up thinking about them. They sleep thinking about them. Their mood depends on them. Their motivation depends on them. Their happiness depends on them. Slowly, they stop living their own life and start emotionally orbiting around someone else's existence. Buddhism teaches that attachment becomes suffering when you lose yourself while trying to hold on to other people. The problem is not love itself. Love can be beautiful, peaceful, and healing. The problem begins when you abandon your own soul in order to keep someone close to you. Many people sacrifice their self-respect, emotional stability, peace, and identity because they are terrified of losing connection. They become so emotionally attached that they stop asking themselves an important question: what is happening to my own life while I spend all my energy chasing people? Think about how many people destroy years of their peace constantly trying to be enough for others. They overthink every message. They seek constant reassurance. They emotionally exhaust themselves trying to make people stay, understand them, value them, or love them properly. Meanwhile, their own life quietly falls apart in the background. Their dreams become neglected. Their mental health becomes worse. Their energy disappears. Their inner peace fades away. This is why Buddhism constantly teaches awareness and detachment, because attachment without awareness makes people emotionally blind. They become so obsessed with external validation that they completely disconnect from themselves. They stop listening to their own emotions. They stop caring about their own growth. They stop building a meaningful life for themselves because all their emotional energy becomes trapped inside relationships, approval, and attention. Many people secretly believe that once they finally receive enough love from others, they will automatically feel complete. But the painful truth is that no amount of outside love can permanently heal a person who keeps abandoning themselves internally. Even if someone gives you attention today, insecurity returns tomorrow if your inner life is still empty. Even if someone loves you deeply, fear still remains if you have not built inner stability within yourself. Buddhism teaches that suffering grows when your entire identity becomes attached to things outside your control. People change. Feelings change. Relationships change. Life changes constantly. If your emotional foundation is built only on external people, your peace will always feel unstable. Every disagreement will feel terrifying. Every distance will feel painful. Every rejection will feel like the end of your world. But when you begin reconnecting with your own life, your own mind, and your own purpose, something powerful starts happening inside you. You slowly stop feeling emotionally desperate all the time. You stop needing constant validation to feel worthy. You stop chasing people who clearly do not value your presence. Because your life itself begins becoming emotionally meaningful again. Many people do not realize how disconnected they are from themselves until they spend time alone. The silence feels uncomfortable because they have spent years distracting themselves through people, relationships, social media, entertainment, and emotional dependency. The moment they are alone, they suddenly feel empty. Why? Because they built their life around external stimulation instead of inner peace. But Buddhism teaches that peace begins when you finally return to yourself. This means rebuilding the relationship with your own mind. It means learning how to enjoy your own company without constantly needing distraction. It means reconnecting with your goals, passions, routines, values, and personal growth. It means asking yourself difficult questions like, what kind of life do I actually want? What truly brings me peace? Who am I outside of other people's opinions and attention? Most people never ask themselves these questions because they are too busy emotionally chasing the world. The truth is that your life becomes much more peaceful when your happiness no longer depends entirely on who texts you, who validates you, who chooses you, or who stays. Imagine waking up without your entire emotional state depending on another person's behavior. Imagine no longer feeling destroyed every time someone becomes distant. Imagine finally having a life so meaningful that your peace remains stable even when relationships change. This is the emotional freedom Buddhism tries to teach. A peaceful person is not someone who never loves others. A peaceful person is someone who never abandons themselves while loving others. Many people think self-love means arrogance or selfishness. But Buddhism teaches something deeper. Real self-love means caring for your own peace enough to stop destroying yourself emotionally for people who continuously drain your energy. It means respecting yourself enough to stop begging for attention from those who barely value your presence. It means protecting your mind enough to walk away from emotional chaos instead of constantly trying to fix broken situations that only keep hurting you. When you truly begin valuing your own life, your standards naturally change. You become more careful about who enters your emotional space. You stop tolerating relationships that constantly create stress, confusion, insecurity, and emotional instability. You stop sacrificing your peace just to avoid loneliness. Because eventually, you realize something important. Loneliness is painful, but losing yourself completely is far more painful. Many people spend years emotionally attached to people who were never truly good for them, simply because they fear being alone with themselves. But Buddhism teaches that solitude can actually become one of the most powerful periods of transformation in your life. Solitude forces you to reconnect with yourself again. It forces you to rebuild your inner world. It forces you to discover happiness that does not depend entirely on outside validation. This is why some of the strongest people are those who learned how to build a beautiful life on their own. They stopped waiting for someone else to save them emotionally. They stopped expecting relationships to magically heal their emptiness. Instead, they started creating peace through their own habits, mindset, discipline, awareness, and personal growth. They began building routines they enjoyed, They focused on their mental health. They developed purpose. They spent time learning, healing, growing, and understanding themselves more deeply. Slowly, their life itself became fulfilling. And once your own life starts feeling meaningful, people stop becoming emotional necessities. This changes everything. You still love people, but you no longer cling to them with desperation. You still appreciate relationships, but your happiness no longer collapses when someone disappoints you. You stop trying to force every connection to survive because you finally understand that your peace matters too. Buddhism teaches that attachment often creates suffering because people try to hold on to things that were never meant to remain permanent forever. Everything in life changes, every relationship changes, every season changes. Fighting this reality only creates deeper emotional pain. But when your happiness comes from within, change becomes easier to survive. You stop fearing loss as intensely because your entire identity is no longer built around external people. You understand that even if life changes, you still have yourself. You still have your growth. You still have your purpose. You still have your peace. You still have a life worth living. And this mindset creates a different type of confidence. Not loud confidence based on ego or superiority. Quiet confidence, inner stability, emotional independence, the ability to stand alone peacefully without emotionally collapsing. Many people search their whole lives for someone to finally complete them. But Buddhism teaches that peace begins when you stop searching for completion outside yourself and start building completeness within. This is why building a life you genuinely love is one of the most powerful things you can ever do. Because the more connected you become to your own soul, your own purpose, your own peace and your own growth, the less emotionally dependent you become on others to constantly make you feel okay. And eventually, something beautiful happens. You stop chasing people who do not choose you. You stop begging for love that costs your peace. You stop abandoning your dreams for temporary attention. You stop shrinking yourself just to keep others comfortable. Instead, you finally begin living your own life fully. And the moment your life becomes deeply meaningful to you, people become optional instead of emotional survival needs. That is freedom. That is peace. And that is the kind of happiness Buddhism tries to awaken within every human being. 9. Your life becomes peaceful when you stop needing to be chosen. One of the deepest emotional wounds many people carry is the constant need to feel chosen by others. Chosen in relationships, chosen in friendships, chosen in social groups, chosen through attention, validation, approval, and acceptance. Many people spend years trying to become good enough for others because deep down, they believe their worth depends on whether someone else values them. This is why rejection hurts so deeply for many people. It is not just about losing a person. It feels like losing value, losing importance, losing emotional security. When someone ignores them, leaves them, replaces them, or stops giving attention, they immediately begin questioning themselves. What is wrong with me? Why was I not enough? Why did they choose someone else? Slowly, their entire self-worth becomes controlled by external people. But Buddhism teaches that suffering grows when your identity depends on outside validation. The moment your peace depends on constantly being chosen by others, you give away control over your emotional life. Your happiness becomes unstable because people's opinions, feelings, and behaviors constantly change. Many people do not realize how much of their life is driven by the fear of not being enough. This fear controls their relationships, decisions, personality, and emotional state. They over-explain themselves to gain acceptance. They tolerate disrespect because they fear abandonment. They chase people who clearly do not value them because they are desperate to feel emotionally selected. They stay emotionally attached to unhealthy relationships simply because rejection feels unbearable. But Buddhism teaches something powerful. Your worth does not increase when people choose you, and it does not decrease when they walk away. This realization changes everything. The truth is that many people are emotionally exhausted because they spend their entire lives trying to earn love instead of building inner peace. They constantly shape themselves around what others want. They hide parts of their personality to avoid judgment. They become addicted to approval because they secretly believe acceptance equals safety. But the more your life revolves around being chosen by others, the more disconnected you become from yourself. You stop asking what genuinely makes you happy. You stop asking what brings you peace. You stop asking who you truly are. Instead, your entire focus becomes, how can I make people stay? This creates endless suffering because no matter how much you sacrifice yourself, you cannot control how other people feel. Some people will still misunderstand you. Some people will still leave. Some people will still fail to appreciate your value no matter how deeply you care for them. Buddhism teaches that attachment to approval creates emotional instability. Because you are constantly trying to control things outside yourself. You cannot control who chooses you. You cannot control who understands you. You cannot control who values you properly. But you can control the relationship you build with yourself. This is why inner peace becomes so powerful. The more connected you become to your own life, the less desperate you become for external validation. You stop needing constant reassurance because your worth no longer depends entirely on other people's attention. Imagine how peaceful life becomes when you stop waking up worried about who likes you, who texted you, who validates you, or who is slowly pulling away from you. Imagine no longer emotionally collapsing every time someone becomes distant. Imagine finally understanding that another person's inability to value you does not make you worthless. This is emotional freedom. Many people spend years chasing emotionally unavailable people because deep down they are addicted to the feeling of earning love. They believe if they can finally make someone choose them, it will prove they are worthy enough. But this mindset traps people inside cycles of emotional suffering. They keep chasing attention while neglecting their own peace completely. Buddhism teaches that true happiness begins when you stop begging the world to confirm your value. Your existence already has value without constant approval from others. You do not need to be universally understood to deserve peace. You do not need everyone to choose you in order to live a meaningful life. The more you love your own life, the less obsessed you become with being emotionally selected by everyone around you. This does not mean rejection suddenly becomes painless. Human emotions still exist. Losing people can still hurt. Feeling misunderstood can still feel painful sometimes. But the difference is that your identity no longer collapses because of it. You stop seeing rejection as proof that something is wrong with you. Instead, you begin understanding an important truth. Not everyone is meant to stay in your life forever. Some people leave because life changes. Some people leave because they are emotionally immature. Some people leave because they cannot recognize your value. And sometimes people leave simply because they are walking a different path. But none of this changes your worth as a human being. Buddhism teaches acceptance instead of emotional resistance. The more you emotionally fight rejection, the more suffering you create for yourself. But when you begin accepting that not every person is meant to choose you, your life becomes much lighter emotionally. You stop forcing connections. You stop begging for attention. You stop over-explaining your worth. You stop chasing people who clearly do not appreciate your presence, because you finally realize that peace is more valuable than forced attachment. Many people secretly stay attached to painful situations because they fear loneliness more than emotional suffering. But Buddhism teaches that attachment without peace only creates deeper pain over time. A relationship without mutual respect, care, emotional safety, and peace cannot truly nourish the soul. This is why learning how to emotionally stand alone is so important. When you become emotionally comfortable with yourself, desperation disappears. You no longer need people to constantly prove your value, because you already know your worth internally. This changes the energy of your entire life. You stop chasing people from fear. You begin connecting with people from peace instead. And ironically, this often creates healthier relationships, because emotionally secure people do not cling, beg, manipulate, or emotionally collapse whenever life becomes uncertain. They understand that love should add peace to life, not constant emotional suffering. The strongest people are not those who never lose anyone. The strongest people are those who continue loving life even after loss. Buddhism teaches that attachment creates suffering because people expect permanence in a world where everything changes. But once you truly accept impermanence, something shifts inside you emotionally. You stop trying to force every relationship to last forever. You begin appreciating people without making your entire identity dependent on them remaining in your life permanently. This creates emotional balance. You can love deeply without losing yourself. You can care about people without becoming emotionally dependent. You can experience connection without abandoning your own peace. And this is one of the most powerful transformations a human being can experience, because once your happiness no longer depends on constantly being chosen by others, you finally begin choosing yourself. You begin protecting your peace more carefully. You begin respecting your emotional needs. You begin building a life that feels meaningful even in solitude. You begin focusing on your growth, your healing, your purpose, and your inner stability. Slowly, your life stops revolving around external validation and starts revolving around inner fulfillment. And this changes the way you move through the world. You stop tolerating disrespect just to avoid being alone. You stop shrinking yourself to gain approval. You stop performing for acceptance. You stop abandoning your authentic self for temporary attention. Instead, you become more grounded, calm, emotionally stable, and peaceful. Because you finally understand that your life was never supposed to revolve around convincing people to choose you. Your life was supposed to be lived. The more meaningful your own life becomes, the less emotionally desperate you become for outside validation. You still appreciate love. You still value connection. But your peace no longer disappears every time someone walks away, because your happiness is no longer built entirely on external people. It is built within you. And once that inner peace becomes strong enough, something beautiful happens. You stop fearing loneliness. You stop fearing rejection. You stop fearing abandonment, because you finally realize that even when people leave, you still have yourself. And for the first time in your life, that finally feels enough. 10. True freedom begins when you finally enjoy your own life. Most people spend their entire lives believing happiness is waiting somewhere outside of them. They believe peace will finally arrive when they find the perfect relationship, receive enough validation, become successful enough, gain more attention, or finally feel accepted by everyone around them. Because of this, they spend years emotionally chasing people, approval, and external achievements while completely neglecting the relationship they have with their own life. But Buddhism teaches a powerful truth. Suffering begins when you believe happiness only exists outside yourself. Many people secretly hate being alone because they never built a life they genuinely enjoy living. Their life feels emotionally empty without constant distraction, attention, or validation. The moment silence appears, discomfort appears. The moment people leave, emptiness appears. This is why so many people become emotionally dependent on relationships. They are not only attached to people, they are escaping themselves. Think about how many people spend their days waiting for messages, attention, reassurance, or emotional validation just to feel okay. Their mood changes based on how others treat them. If someone gives attention, they feel happy. If someone becomes distant, they feel anxious. If someone leaves, their entire emotional world collapses. Their peace constantly depends on things outside their control. Buddhism teaches that this is one of the deepest forms of suffering, building your happiness on temporary external conditions. Because external things always change. People change, relationships change, circumstances change, life changes constantly. And if your happiness only exists when life feels perfect externally, peace will never last for long. This is why Buddhism places so much importance on inner fulfillment. True peace begins when you stop expecting the world to constantly complete you emotionally and start creating fulfillment from within yourself. Many people never truly learn how to enjoy life because they are too busy mentally chasing the next thing they believe will finally make them happy. They constantly think, I'll be happy when someone loves me. I'll be happy when people appreciate me. I'll be happy when I become successful. I'll be happy when everyone understands me. But this mindset traps people in endless emotional dissatisfaction because happiness keeps getting postponed into the future. No matter what they achieve or receive, the mind quickly starts wanting more. Buddhism teaches that attachment to constant desire creates suffering because the mind becomes addicted to chasing instead of appreciating the present moment. This is why many people remain emotionally restless even when they already have good things in their life. Their mind is constantly searching for what is missing instead of valuing what already exists. They become unable to enjoy simple moments because they are emotionally dependent on something bigger happening in order to finally feel complete. But true freedom begins when you stop waiting for life to become perfect before allowing yourself to feel peace. Imagine how different your life would feel if your happiness no longer depended on constant attention from others. Imagine waking up and genuinely enjoying your own routine, your own growth, your own peace, your own company, and your own life. Imagine no longer feeling emotionally empty every time someone disappoints you, because your fulfillment no longer depends entirely on them. This is what Buddhism tries to teach. A peaceful person is not someone who has everything externally. A peaceful person is someone who learned how to stop emotionally depending on everything externally. Many people confuse attachment with love. They believe deeply needing someone means deeply loving them. But Buddhism teaches that attachment often comes from fear, insecurity, loneliness, and emotional dependence. Real love feels different. Real love does not destroy your peace. Real love does not make you abandon yourself completely. Real love allows connection without emotional slavery. This is why building a life you genuinely enjoy is so important. When your life itself becomes meaningful, relationships stop becoming emotional survival tools. You stop needing people to constantly save you from emptiness because your inner world already contains peace. Many people have never experienced this type of emotional independence before. Their happiness has always depended on who chooses them, who validates them, or who stays in their life. Because of this, they constantly fear rejection, abandonment, and loneliness. But the more you build a life that feels beautiful to your own soul, the less terrifying loneliness becomes. This does not mean you stop caring about people. Buddhism never teaches isolation from humanity. Human connection still matters. Love still matters. Relationships can still bring joy and meaning into life. But your emotional stability should not completely collapse every time external situations change. That is the difference between connection and emotional dependence. One comes from peace. The other comes from fear. Many people suffer because they have built their identity around external approval for so long that they no longer know who they truly are without it. They constantly perform for acceptance. They shape their personality around what others want. They fear judgment so deeply that they slowly disconnect from their authentic self. But Buddhism teaches that true peace begins when you stop performing for the world and start reconnecting with your own soul. This means asking deeper questions. What actually makes me happy? What kind of life feels meaningful to me? What brings me peace when nobody is watching? Who am I outside of validation and approval? Most people avoid these questions because they are too distracted chasing external attention. But the people who finally ask themselves these questions begin transforming their entire life. Because eventually, they stop living only for appearances. They stop measuring their worth through other people's opinions. They stop seeking constant reassurance just to feel enough. Instead, they begin creating a life that genuinely feels fulfilling internally. This is one of the most powerful things a human being can do. When you truly begin enjoying your own life, your energy changes completely. You stop acting desperate in relationships because your happiness no longer depends entirely on another person. You stop begging people to stay because you no longer fear yourself in solitude. You stop tolerating emotional chaos because your peace becomes more valuable than unhealthy attachment. This is why emotionally fulfilled people often appear calmer, quieter, and more grounded. Their happiness is not constantly swinging based on external validation. They already built inner stability within themselves. Many people search everywhere for peace, while completely ignoring the life they are currently living. They think peace will magically arrive later. But Buddhism teaches that peace is created through the way you live daily life right now. The habits you repeat, the thoughts you feed your mind, the people you allow around you, the energy you consume, the relationship you build with yourself. All these things shape your inner world. If your daily life constantly drains your spirit, your mind will naturally suffer. But if your daily life slowly becomes filled with meaning, awareness, growth, peace, discipline, and self-respect, your emotional state changes naturally over time. This is why Buddhism encourages mindfulness and intentional living, because peace is not an accident. Inner peace is something you consciously build. Many people are emotionally exhausted not because life is impossible, but because they spend every day disconnected from themselves. They constantly abandon their own needs while chasing validation, attention, relationships, and social approval. They have no relationship with silence, no relationship with solitude, no relationship with their own inner world. But once you reconnect with yourself, something beautiful happens. You stop feeling emotionally incomplete all the time. You stop desperately needing constant attention. You stop measuring your worth through who stays or leaves, because your life itself begins becoming meaningful again. And this changes your entire perspective on happiness. You begin finding peace in simple things. Quiet mornings, personal growth, nature, healthy routines, reading, learning, healing, building discipline, protecting your energy, taking care of your mind. Slowly, life stops feeling like something you are trying to escape from. Instead, your own life becomes a place of peace. And this is the real transformation Buddhism tries to guide people toward. Not becoming emotionless, not avoiding relationships, not isolating yourself from humanity, but learning how to create so much inner fulfillment that your happiness no longer depends entirely on the external world. Because the moment you genuinely enjoy your own life, something powerful happens emotionally. People stop becoming emotional necessities. Validation loses its control over you. Loneliness loses much of its fear. And peace finally begins growing from within. You stop chasing the world desperately because you already discovered something deeper. You discovered how to be at peace with yourself. And once that happens, freedom begins. At the end of the day, Buddhism teaches that true happiness does not come from constantly being chosen, validated, understood or loved by everyone around you. Real peace begins when you stop abandoning yourself while chasing the world. The more connected you become to your own life, your own growth, your own purpose, and your own inner peace, the less emotionally dependent you become on others to constantly make you feel complete. Most people spend years searching for happiness in relationships, attention, approval, and external success, while neglecting the relationship they have with themselves. But no person can permanently fill the emptiness created by self-neglect. This is why building a life you genuinely love is so important. When your daily life becomes meaningful, peaceful, and emotionally fulfilling, loneliness loses its power over you. You stop begging for attention. You stop chasing people who drain your energy. You stop measuring your worth through who stays or leaves. Instead, you begin creating peace from within. Buddhism does not teach you to stop loving people. It teaches you to stop losing yourself while loving them. It teaches you to appreciate connection without making your happiness completely dependent on it. Because people may come and go, life will continue changing, but your inner peace should not collapse every time external circumstances change. The more you love your own life, the less desperately you need others to complete it. And the moment your happiness no longer depends entirely on outside validation, you finally become emotionally free. That is the real power of inner peace. That is the freedom Buddhism tries to awaken within you. And that is where a truly peaceful life begins.